Okay, I think it's rolling. Hi everybody, and welcome back to the latest live workshop on my English Writing Tips channel. My name is Alisha, and in this live workshop, we are going to talk about how to write a paragraph. I'm super excited. I have chosen 3 types of paragraph for this live workshop. We're going to talk about journal style, or diary style, stuff you can use on social media. We're going to talk about summary paragraphs, and we're also going to talk about essay introductions. So we have a lot to cover today, but I'm very excited. I also have some sample paragraphs that you sent me before the workshop, so thank you very much to everybody who sent in one of those. That was super, super awesome. And we'll cover that a little bit later. It looks like everything is working fine, so hello everybody in the chat. Thomas and Rendell and Ase, hello. Juan and Gerardo, hello everybody. Great. Okay, it looks like everything is going okay. So, so now that everything is going okay, let's get to kind of our introduction part to the workshop. Let me make sure I have that set there. Okay, cool. All right, so let's get into, our workshop topics for this lesson. So I'm using Microsoft Word if you have any questions about this. Let me move this one more time, and then we'll get rolling. Oops, I moved this, sorry guys. Okay, so let's get to our workshop goals to begin. So our workshop goals for today's writing workshop are these 3. We are going to learn how to write a paragraph, 3 types, which I already talked about. Second, we're going to learn to use transition words. I'm going to talk about transition words, like words we use to connect our sentences, to connect our ideas. We're going to talk about this throughout the live lesson, so I hope you can pick these up easily. And then third, I want to talk in today's lesson about how to consider appropriate vocabulary choices. So that means, how do you choose the best vocabulary words for the situation, and how do you think about the vocabulary words that you choose? So these are the 3 main things I want to talk about today, okay? Then, the next thing is our flow. This is what we're going to do in today's lesson. There is a lot. There is a lot of information today, so I hope we can go smoothly, and if you have questions, please feel free to send them in the chat. So first, we're going to look at what is a paragraph. What is a paragraph? So I noticed there's some, maybe it's not super clear what exactly a paragraph is, but we'll talk about this and why it's important to know what one is. We'll cover some general tips about writing, and then we'll start with journal and diary style paragraphs. We'll do a quick break, number 4. Then we'll go to summary paragraphs, and we'll go to essay introductions at the end. Then we'll do a little review and conclusion. So we will probably spend about 45 minutes to 1 hour on this workshop, so I hope that everybody can find something that is useful to them, or they can find a new idea, a new opinion. Okay, it looks like everything is going great, and there are many people participating. Super cool. So let's begin. Let's begin. So let's start with the first part. First part, what is a paragraph? I noticed maybe this isn't clear. So let's begin with kind of a definition. What is a paragraph? A paragraph is a piece of writing that focuses on one subject. So we see paragraphs in books and in news articles and things like this. Paragraphs begin on new lines right here, so a new line of text. Paragraphs begin on new lines and are often indented. I'm going to talk about this in a moment. And a paragraph can be 1 or more sentences long. Okay, so you might think like, wow, a 1-sentence paragraph, that sounds crazy. There are some authors that are known for their long sentence styles. Like a good example is Charles Dickens, if anyone has read Charles Dickens. That's a good example of a writer that uses very, very long sentences to create paragraphs. So let's talk about this word, indented. If you prepare essays for school, or if you prepare official documents for work, you may need to consider the format of your writing. So indented looks like this. There's this space here at the beginning. See this? Before this, there's nothing here. This is called an indent, right? So this part right here, this is called an indent, the noun. So indented, this is an indented paragraph. It starts with this space. So I have just some basic text here. This is my paragraph. The content doesn't matter. This is just the format difference. Here is a paragraph that is not indented. So typically, when we read books, we see indented paragraphs, or when we see like news articles, for example, they are indented, okay? So this is a paragraph. A paragraph has one idea. It focuses on one subject, okay? Cool. So now we're going to talk about the importance of knowing how to write a good paragraph, and then we'll get into the workshop details topics, okay? Some people are joining still. Hi, Javier and Lily. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Okay. So let's talk about this topic. I have some ideas here. These are not the only ideas by any means, but why is it important to know how to write a good paragraph? So a few points here. Knowing how to write a good paragraph will help you to communicate your ideas better. So, of course, when we are speaking, like in a live stream or in a conversation, we have body language to help us, right? We can stop and start, and it's natural, yeah? But in text, you need to know how to organize your information. You need to know how to communicate your idea to the person reading it in an efficient way and a way that gets all of the information across, right? So this is a really important skill for work or for school. Second point here, knowing how to write a paragraph nicely will help you as you try to get your message across to other people and get them to spread your message. So if you share updates about your work or your projects on social media, or maybe inside your company's, media platforms, whatever those might be, it's really important to communicate the ideas effectively. Again, do you want them to share your message? Do you want them to make a decision from the information? So it's really good to think about these communication strategies and writing about those things effectively, okay? So knowing how to write effectively can help them understand and encourage them to share your work, yeah? Okay, then next point, if you can write a good paragraph, you can share summaries of information efficiently. So if you want to present research information, for example, or if you want to share something like a book report at school or in a hobby group. So a short paragraph that does this is a really, really good way to do that. And then finally, writing a good paragraph shows you have the ability to organize and communicate your ideas well. So this is just an important professional and personal skill. Okay? So, of course, there are many other reasons to know how to write a good paragraph, but these are the ones I want to focus on for today. Okay? Some more people are joining. Hello, JN and Mariella from Costa Rica. Cool, your dream is to read books in English. Awesome. I hope you're going well with that dream. Okay, so let's go to the first kind of, I guess, mini workshop section, which is general tips and questions. These general tips I want to include for everything in today's workshop. So these are kind of tips and questions that I hope you can consider every time you start to write something. So the first thing to consider is this question, maybe the most important thing. What is the function of the paragraph? So think about it, like what's the paragraph's job? What is it supposed to do? Is it trying to teach me something? Is it trying to give me some information to share? So what is the function of the paragraph? What is its job? What do I want to achieve with it? So that means don't just sit down and write like a stream of consciousness, a stream of ideas, but think about the function, the purpose of the paragraph. Okay? Then, next part, these questions too. What is the message I want to give to the reader? So the person who's reading my information, do I want them to feel an emotion? Do I want them to make a decision? Do I want them to do something after the paragraph? So think about the other person, yeah? So think about the person who's reading the information. Do you want them to feel angry? Do you want them to feel sad? Do you want them to feel, oh, I learned something? So think about the other person, yeah? It's not about you so much, but think about what you want from them, from their experience. Okay, cool. So these general tips are for all of today's topics. So with this in our minds, let's go to the first part. Journal and diary style paragraphs. This is the most casual paragraph style we are going to look at today. So let's get into it. I see some people in the chat. Hello, everybody that is joining. Cool. Hello, Mauricio. Oh, you submitted today. Awesome. Okay, let's go. So let's begin. When should we use these casual style paragraphs? So these kind of, I called them journal or diary style, but we use these when we're writing in like a daily journal, of course, when we're like keeping track of our own activities. Or I wanted to focus on this one because we use this style typically when we share things on social media, yeah? So when we write a post on Facebook or on Instagram, or maybe like even on Twitter, we use this kind of casual, friendly writing style. So it's maybe the most common one, the most common style from today's workshop topics. We also use this when we're writing in other non-formal situations. So for example, if you write on like a blog, or if you send messages to your friends or family or whoever. So we use these same kind of casual feelings, okay? So let's begin by taking a look at a pretty good writing sample, just a basic writing sample. This is from me, not a viewer subscription, not a viewer submission. Let's take a look at this writing sample. So I made this up. This is not true, just an idea. So here's an example of something you might see on social media. So let's take a look at this and then talk about the good points of this. So this paragraph is quite short. It says, I'm really excited to say that my first book was published today. It's called Traveling Camera, and it's a collection of my favorite photos from my travels over the last 3 years. I was very lucky to receive an offer to put together this book, and I'm so thrilled it's finally ready. Check it out from the link below. Hope you enjoy. Okay, very easy to understand this paragraph, right? So why is this paragraph good? Let's talk about this topic now. So this paragraph is good. Here are a few points about it. We know the emotions and the topic of the paragraph immediately, right? So immediately means right away, yeah? From the beginning. We know the emotions. I'm really excited, and my first book was published today. We know the topic immediately, from the beginning. The writer is excited, and we can feel that from the first sentence, right? So we have the emotion, and we have the topic. Then we also have this point. Oops, sorry, I scrolled past you. Then we have this part as well. We get the title of the book and the topic next. So the topic is very clear, and we get background information about how the book was created. We get information about where to find it. Then we also have this. Where do we get it? We get it from the link below, and a very short kind of goodbye message that is positive. I like to use this one. So this paragraph, the stuff that I want to point out the most, these are the 2 points I wanted to focus on. We are very quickly able to understand the topic and the emotion, and we also get the key background information only, right? So this is a very short paragraph, but it does its job, right? We know the purpose, we know the function of it. Where would we use something like this? Like in this situation, on social media, on a blog, in a message to our friend, in a casual email, perhaps. This paragraph is probably something we post on social media, right? So let's compare this then. Let's take a look. We just read a good example. Let's see an example of the same topic, this one, same topic, but completely different writing, yeah? So let's talk about maybe why this needs some improvement, okay? So let's look at this. Hey everyone! So I'm not sure if you heard the news or saw any of my posts about this project, but I wanted to share something I've been working on for a long time. About 3 years ago, I got really interested in travel photography. I made a portfolio website for my projects, and this grew more and more popular. Eventually, I got an offer to create a photo book with my pictures, and the release date is today. I'm so excited! Check out the book from the link below. I hope you like it. Okay, so this paragraph, what is happening here? Why does this need improvement? Is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. This is not wrong. There's nothing wrong with this paragraph, but it needs some improvement. Okay, this type of paragraph is something I see a lot on social media, yeah? So first, what's the deal? Why does this one need improvement? This paragraph starts out feeling kind of insecure, right? So this person says, hey everyone, I'm not sure if you heard the news or saw my post. So we start out with this part, which is kind of insecure, that we don't feel confident, we don't feel the writer's confidence, and we don't feel that they are excited, right? They seem kind of insecure. So the writer is suggesting people maybe didn't see any updates about this project, and it doesn't seem very exciting, yeah? Okay. Then they share background information before they share about the actual project, yeah? So we still don't know. If I'm reading this, I'm the reader, I see this information for the first time, I still don't know what this is about, right? I know it's about a project, but I don't know what. And then this person gives more background information. Oh, travel photography, okay. And then I made a portfolio website, okay. I still don't know what this is about. And then finally, way back here, we have photo book, okay. So they share background information before they share about the actual project. In this text, the book title isn't even included. We don't know the name of the book here. That's kind of important. If you write a book, you need to tell people the name of the book, right? And finally, we don't get the excited feeling until the end of the paragraph, right? So this paragraph, yeah, it communicates a similar idea, but we don't have that excited feeling of the writer. We don't have the key information at the beginning, and we just kind of don't have an easy way to understand what we're reading, okay? So that's why this one needs some improvement. And the other one, this guy, is much better. It's shorter, sure. So long does not equal valuable, yeah? Your paragraph and your sentence should be as long or short as necessary to communicate the idea effectively. Okay, cool. So let's go on. Let's see, I'm checking the chat. Rental, you wrote, it seems really informal. This one, yeah, that's the point. I wanted this to be an informal one. Just because you're sharing about an important project doesn't mean you have to be super formal on social media. On social media, generally, it's a good idea to be friendly, yeah? Okay, so let's continue to some tips, some easy tips that I hope you can take from this workshop. Do these things. First, choose vocabulary words that are basic. So choose words that are easy for your reader to understand, yeah? So when you're writing something for social media, to share on social media or to share with someone close, you don't need to try to sound like the most, I don't know, like you have the biggest vocabulary in the world. The point is to make it easy to read, to make it easy to understand, yeah? So think about your reader again. Then feel free, point two, feel free to use emoji. If this is your style, if you like to use emoji, cool. If you don't, cool. That's fine, it's up to you. But in these kinds of casual paragraphs, it's totally fine to use emoji, yeah? Okay. Then next one. Feel free to use slang. Okay, so if you would usually use slang with the people you expect will read your message, like if you speak one way and your friends and family know you speak one way and then you use a lot of strange slang in your message, it probably is kind of weird. So try to communicate in the same manner as you usually do, okay? Then next one, focus on shorter, easy to understand sentences. If you use super long sentences with tons and tons and tons of information, it might be hard for your reader to figure out what's the key information here? So we don't want them to feel like they're working, right? So we want them to get the information easily, right? So try to use shorter, easy to understand sentences. Next point, do stay focused on your topic. So if you change topics or share related ideas a little bit, that's okay. But sometimes people will put in like kind of side stories. I'm sure you've all had this experience. You read someone's like update on Facebook and they share like a side story or they write like a short novel to talk about like a project launch. Like just keep it focused. Yeah, try to keep your topic focused. And this one, tell people what you're talking about right away. So attention span on the internet is very short. So we lose our attention very quickly on the internet. We can swipe and scroll away, right away. The moment we feel bored, we're out, yeah? So be quick, be efficient with this. Okay, so these are things to do. Then some don'ts, some things that you maybe shouldn't do or to think carefully about before you do these things are using formal language, this first point. So you can be polite without being formal, yeah? So if you want to be polite, that's great. That sounds awesome. I think it's good to be polite whenever you can, but you don't need to use super formal language in order to be polite. You can do this just by presenting your information cleanly, yeah? So using formal language in a casual piece of writing can make the writing feel really strange. So if you're sharing a very casual update with someone and you use lots of big vocabulary words and you use lots of expressions that sound very, very formal, it sounds bizarre and that kind of distracts from your message too. So remember this, you can be formal or you can be polite without being formal. This one then, this might sound strange, but don't stress a lot about punctuation. When you're writing like for yourself, like in a journal for yourself, or when you're writing on social media or whatever, don't be super stressed about punctuation. Most people are pretty relaxed about punctuation in casual settings, though sometimes you will find people that they want to like check everything that you write on like Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Like, it's a good idea to practice good habits, but if you're stressing super hard about where to put a comma in a sentence, like, try not to stress so much about that for your social media update, you know? So people are pretty forgiving with this. And actually on this point too is maybe interesting. On social media, especially on Twitter, there's a kind of anti-punctuation approach. So that means there are people, and I do this too, people that drop punctuation and capital letters and things, and they do this on purpose to show that something is a joke or to show that they're trying to be silly. So by removing the rules, yeah, by removing the punctuation from something, they create a joke. So I like to do this too on Twitter. Okay, so there we have our introduction to journal and diary style paragraphs. Okay. Randall, do you think it's okay to use transition words like well, so, anyway, like? In this case, yes. In these casual ones, yes. But I would say in this case, when you're presenting information, well is generally something we use in conversation, right? You use well to respond to someone else. You might use it to show the next sequence in something. But yeah, these are the more casual transition words are appropriate for this style. Okay, so let's go to some journal style paragraphs that you sent me. Let's talk about it. So I put 2 here. I think Mauricio, I think I saw you in the chat earlier, yeah? Hey, thanks for sending me this. This was good. So as with the last workshop, I have edited these. So I will show you. This is the original, oh no, can we see it? Yeah, so I have made some changes. My changes are in red here. So I'm going to review the fixed, the edited paragraph and talk about why it looks good, okay? So, Mauricio, oh, there's me, I'm shy. That's cool, thanks for sending it, even though you're shy, that's awesome. So Mauricio sent me this paragraph about taking care of the planet and individual action. So meaning, what can we individual people do, okay? So we have this, many people think about the planet as just a place where we live. Many people used to think about environmental problems as things that politicians had to solve. While that may be right, a lot of people continue to think this way, but our planet needs more. It's a place that we have to take care of. That starts with simple things. It's our home, and we have made a mess of it. In my opinion, the action starts with each of us. People often don't see the value that their own individual action can create or how they can help. That's the message that I want to share. It all starts with you. Okay, so the things that I liked about this paragraph were that the topic was clear. So we have this introduction, think the planet, right? And also you have this introductory sentence too, right? You told me what your topic was, of course. But we had this nice introductory sentence where the people can relate to, right? And then we had kind of the perspective of some other, like the long-standing perspective, the background, actually. And then you have your opinion here. We have to take care of it. We've made a mess of it. We should start with us. So actually, my feedback for this one is just to reverse your the order of this. So what I talked about before with the example of the book writing paragraph, in this example, we have lots of background information up front, which is good if you're writing like an essay introduction. We'll see this later. When I read this, actually, I felt that it was kind of like, I was like persuasive, right? You want someone to do something, right? To take action, to like make a difference in their behavior, right? So this to me feels like the beginning of an essay. Like you're going to tell us more about individual action, right? So for me, my suggestion would be to put this, if you're going to share this in like social media somewhere, would be to put this individual or your opinion at the beginning, right? We have to take action, in other words. So that's what I would suggest to improve this paragraph. But yeah, the ideas were very clear. Thanks for sending this in, Mauricio. That's awesome. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. Hamza. I don't think Hamza is in the chat, but thank you, Hamza. Hamza crushed the the homework assignment. He sent me 3 very long writing samples. Well done, Hamza. Okay, let's look at Hamza's paragraph. Hamza, in his casual style paragraph, was about, he wrote about his dream job. So he was sharing about a life experience, and this is like a journal entry, kind of. So let's take a look. Again, Hamza, if you're watching this later, I did edit this, so you can take a quick screenshot of the changes here if you want to take a look. So here is Hamza's paragraph about his dream job. Let's talk about this one and find out what's good and maybe what we could improve. Okay, so this one. Everyone in this life has a special dream job. When I was a child, I wanted to be a teacher. My dream grew when I was studying at primary school. At the end of each class, I would steal chalk and put it in my pocket. When I came back home, I would imagine myself as a teacher. I would put on a white shirt and give lessons to my cousins. At that time, I could not have imagined myself standing up in front of the classroom and sharing knowledge with students, because teaching is not something that everyone in the world can do. But eventually, I became a teenager. I'm sorry, I became a teenager. I became a teacher. I became a teacher at a secondary school. From my experience, I have learned that if you want to be a teacher, you should have positive energy so you can inspire students to do good things. Okay, this is a really kind of like we feel a lot of emotion from this paragraph, right? So Hamza in this paragraph, nice job Hamza, is not talking about persuading someone of something. There's no like, check this link, whatever. In this, we see like, it's like someone is kind of writing a diary, maybe for themselves, or maybe they're sharing part of their life story somewhere, right? So appropriately, we have some kind of emotional content, right? That's super, super great. So he talks about an actual experience. Like at the end of each class, I would steal chalk and put it in my pocket. And I love this verb choice too. I would steal chalk. And this grammar point that he's chosen to apply, I would steal. So that indicates that this was a habit for him when he was a little kid. Yeah, so these are these small choices that really effectively communicate this experience. And then he again gives another really concrete example. I would imagine myself as a teacher, put on a white shirt and give lessons to my cousins. So we have this emotional example, this strong connection to someone's past experience. At that time, I couldn't have imagined doing this, but eventually I became a teacher. And then he finishes with this nice comment, like you should have positive energy to inspire other students. So I really liked that this one communicated emotion and personal experience really, really well. Depending on what you would want to do with something like this, maybe this could be like a paragraph in like a blog post or an article about following your dreams, perhaps. So I felt like this was a really good starting point for what you could maybe inspire other people to do with your dream, right? So I really liked this, and if anything, I thought that maybe we could maybe see like some kind of maybe advice comment or some other, like what the next sentence was for Hamza. Like I wanted to read more about this, you know. It felt kind of inspiring. So I really liked that, and if anything, I just wanted to see more. So thanks very much, Hamza, if you're watching this, maybe later, different time zone. So this was great. Thanks so much for submitting. Okie dokie, so we are at the quick break. It is time for a quick break. If you have questions or anything in the chat, feel free to send that along. We're gonna get to the second half of today's live stream after this, which is summary paragraphs and essay introductions. Phew. So I'm looking at the chat. Also, if you haven't, please make sure to hit the like button on this video. It'll help other people to find the workshop. Yeah. So we'll take a quick break. I will have a quick sip of water, and then we'll go to the next part. All right. So the next part is more, it requires more brain power, I feel. All right. So we'll do this shortly. I'm checking the chat too while we have quick break time. Renda says, next time I will try to send text. Yeah, if you want to send a writing sample for the workshops, I post an announcement on social media and I post announcements on the community tab of this channel when I make the schedule for the live workshop. So if you want to submit, please, of course, make sure to be subscribed to the channel and check the community posts where you can submit your writing samples before the workshop. Okay? Mauricia, thanks for the corrections. Cool. Yeah, thank you so much for sending that along. That's awesome. Okay. John Carlos says better streaming than English 101. Really? different vibe, different feeling, right? Ase says really useful. Okay. Something's very unfair. I'm not sure. Could I make it monthly? I'm not sure. I've thought about making a live monthly, but it takes a lot of time and effort to put together these. Maybe in the future. But for now, yeah, I'm trying to find the right pace for these. Okie dokie. Quick break. I'm ready. Let's go. So, quick break. Okay, so let's begin. Summary paragraphs. So, summary paragraphs, very, very important to know how to write these effectively. So, let's begin. When might we use a summary paragraph? When might we use a summary paragraph? Use a summary when you need to share key points in an efficient way. So, for example, you might want to summarize a book or a movie, like to write a review of that, or maybe you just, it's your hobby, like keeping track of movies and books and things, or maybe you want to write an album review. So you write a short paragraph. You summarize. So to summarize information means to take the key points and put it all in short form. Yeah? Okay. We also use summaries to help readers identify key information. So this is really helpful in presentation and in research situations. So you can use summary paragraphs after you share data, for example. This helps your readers to understand the most important points. Okay? So let's take a look at our samples for this section. Samples, summary paragraphs. So for this one, I wrote a summary of a book, and I made this one a little formal. So my idea with this sample is that you might see this on like Amazon book reviews or something like that. So this is a sample book review that I made to be a little more formal. So let's take a look. This is about the book Meditations. Okay, so here it is. That's the book title. The name of the book is Meditations. So the book Meditations is a compilation of the writings of Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor. Structured not as a page-turning novel or as a short list of essays, Meditations is a series of small pieces of wisdom that are just as applicable to life's challenges today as they were to Aurelius's life thousands of years ago. From advice for dealing with challenging people to how to approach one's work, Aurelius covers a wide range of life issues. His writings are famous as an example of the Stoic philosophy, an approach to life that emphasizes the importance of self-control and the ability to contextualize situations. Though the topics are not light and writing is not cheerful, Meditations is a great book to keep on your home bookshelf, something to open now and then when you're looking for a little bit of wisdom. Okay, so here is our kind of formal book review. So why is this paragraph good? Why does this sound nice? Let's talk about that. So in the first sentence, again, we understand what the paragraph is about. First sentence, the book Meditations is a compilation of the writings of Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor. Okay, so we know right away, this is the topic. This is what I'm reading about. Second, the second sentence tells us a key point about the book. It's not a novel. So this is not a story, a typical story. It's not a collection of essays. So it's a bunch of small points together. So we see that here, structured not as a page-turning novel or as a list of short essays. So I used a kind of formal structure to write this sentence. I said structured not as, right? So this means, structured not means it is not organized or it's not put together as a page-turning novel, right? So I've used this to express that efficiently. Structured not as a page-turning novel or as a short list of essays or as a list of short essays, okay? Then the third point here, the paragraph gives a broad range of examples of the content in the book that may be relatable to the reader. So what does this mean? This means that in this paragraph, I've included some things that can be relevant, that people can understand from the book. So I chose things to talk about from the book that I thought would be helpful for people to understand. So, for example, he talks about life's challenges. This is my introduction to the topic. And then this sentence talks about some examples, some other more detailed examples of what people can relate to. So dealing with challenging people, approaching your work, and so on. So we have some examples that people can understand in their own lives, yeah? So we have relatability in this paragraph. Then we have some opinion at the end, which makes the author's opinion clear. So it's not just about this is in the book, that's in the book, that's in the book. So we have author opinion. The topics are not light and the writing is not cheerful. Yeah, so that's the author opinion. And we have, it's a great book to keep on your bookshelf for a little bit of wisdom. Okay, so we have all of these good points about this. Again, this is a more formal book introduction. Let's compare this now to another way to write about this and see what we could improve, see what's different too, yeah? Okay, so let's look at the next one. Oh, sorry, I had one more, but when would a paragraph like this be used? So we talked about this already. In a review of a book or a movie, in a presentation, we might use something like this, or maybe on a sales page for a product. This is where we use these summary style paragraphs, okay? So let's look at another paragraph about the same book. So this is the same book, same topic, but different approach to the writing, okay? So the book Meditations is by Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. The book is a collection of his ideas about life. It's not a typical book. Each part is divided into smaller parts that give one of Aurelius's ideas. In the first chapter, Aurelius talks about his inspirations. In the second chapter, he talks about work. In the third chapter, he talks about relationships with others. In the fourth chapter, he talks about death. These topics are interesting, and many people can relate to them. I think this is a good book. Okay, so what do we think about this paragraph? I marked it as needs some improvement here, of course. So let's talk about why. Why does this paragraph need a little bit of help? Why do we need to help this guy out a bit? So what's the deal? First, this review is like a list of facts, right? So we see chapter 1 is about this, chapter 2 is about this, chapter 3 is about this. Okay, anybody can open the book or check the information on like the book sales page and look at the chapter list. Anybody can check this information, right? We're not giving the reader something new to consider. So we don't get the feeling the author has really carefully read through the book and looked for key points, right? We don't get that feeling. We just get this list of information that's kind of boring, right? Okay, we know what each chapter is about, and we just know that the author thinks the book is interesting, and this isn't super helpful for the reader, right? This person just says these topics are interesting. Many people can relate to them, but we don't have any examples, right? We just have a list of topics. Then, this point, the author didn't really use adjectives to help people understand the tone of the book, the intensity of the writing. We don't have any kind of feeling about the detailed topics. We don't have a feeling about what the writing is like. So we don't have a very good use of adjectives in this writing. The next point, we don't have any background information about the book to understand how it relates to other very relevant parts of history. So this point mentions this because there's just no kind of context. We don't see any kind of information about how this book is similar to or different from other ideas. So it's kind of strange for a book to just like exist on its own. Like it talks about some other topics, right? So we don't have any other background information about how this book is related to other topics that people might be interested in. We're missing some background information here. Then I really want to focus on this point right here. This review ends with an I think statement right here. I think this is a good book. This is a really common thing I see in writing like opinion pieces and review pieces when people are just starting. When you're writing a review, I think is implied. What does this mean? This means when you're writing a review, you're writing a book report or something like that, of course it's your opinion. Of course this is your idea. So it's considered inefficient often to use expressions like I think or I believe. So when you're writing something that is clearly your opinion, it's better, it's more efficient to remove those. I think this, I don't think that, I believe this. We know that it's your opinion. We know that this is your belief. So to make your writing sound more confident and to make your writing more efficient, it's generally considered a good idea to remove those I think statements, yeah? So this is one point I really wanted to make sure we discussed. So if you notice this in your own review writing, just take it out. I think this is a good book just becomes this is a good book, right? Pretty easy to fix that one. Okay, cool. So now we have our samples. Let's talk just very, very quickly, some very short do's and don'ts, some summary paragraph writing tips here. So first thing, do, things to do. Highlight the key information. Highlight the key information. Remember, the summary is for your reader to quickly understand your topic, right? It's not for you to rewrite the whole book. You don't have to write the whole book again, or you don't have to write the whole story of the movie. You don't have to write all of the data in your research. The purpose, remember the general tip from the beginning of this workshop, the purpose of this paragraph is to quickly give your reader the key information. Yeah, so do that. Focus on that. Highlight the key information, okay? Then, share your opinion if you're writing a review of some kind. So when you do this, a really good way to do this, instead of using those I think, I believe kind of statements, choose adjectives right here. This is my tip. Choose adjectives that indicate your opinion if you're writing a book review. So you can do this with your adjective choice. So that means you have to kind of level up your vocabulary. Don't just say good, bad, interesting. think about the details of that. So why is it good? What makes it good specifically? So use your adjectives more effectively to show your opinion. And then if you're presenting something, if your summary paragraph is about research, is about data, something like that, use specific numbers to reference your data, yeah? So for example, rather than saying the population increased a lot in 2015, say the population increased by 20% in 2015. So when you can, be specific, yeah? Use those numbers in your summary if you're sharing data and research, okay? So those are things to do. Those are recommendations. Here are things not to do. So don't try to cram absolutely every fact or opinion you think you can into the paragraph. You don't need to just jam it with all the information in your head. I know after you read a book or after you read a movie, maybe you feel excited about it, so you want to share all the content. Try to avoid this. So try to think of the key information and put that in. Yeah, so don't try to cram it all in. Don't generally, if you're writing a summary paragraph, don't use emoji or other silly characters. Maybe if you're writing a review that's just for posting on social media as like a hobby, emoji are okay. But generally speaking, to make it seem like a legitimate review that people should pay attention to, generally don't use emoji, okay? Also, don't just list the basic information about the work or about the product. So in my writing sample, in my second writing example that needs some improvement, we saw an example of this, yeah? So don't just list basic information. People read the reviews to find detailed information that will help them make a decision, right? We read summaries of research and data to help us understand something, right? So don't just list the basic information that we can already access somewhere else, okay? Finally, I have a maybe here. So I have a maybe. My maybe here is about slang. Slang and other maybe non-professional vocabulary words. So this depends a lot on the magazine or on the blog or the article that you're writing for. So this is about this is less about your personal preference in terms of writing, but more, is it appropriate for the place you're going to share your writing? So for example, if you're writing a music review and you're going to submit it to like a blog, like a music review blog or something, and they're okay with like curse words and slang and lots of personal feelings, fine, that's cool. If you're submitting to some place more formal, then make sure you follow their rules. So the slang thing is a maybe. It depends on the place where you're going to submit. Okay, so here are our tips for summary paragraph writing. Okay, phew, that was a lot. Fortunato, hello and welcome. Thanks for joining. Okay, all right, so let's move on now to viewer submission, some things that you sent me. Oh my gosh, so we got some very interesting topics. We got we got one from Tomas Lineros. Are you in the chat? I don't think so. Thanks for sending this in, Tomas. This was a great summary paragraph about Eddie Van Halen. I really enjoyed reading this. And then we also have one from John Carlo, who I think is in the chat, about the Philippines. So let's take a look at these. This one is fairly long, but there's a lot to talk about here. So let's get into this. If you're not familiar, Eddie Van Halen was a very famous guitarist and musician. So let's take a look at this paragraph kindly sent by Thomas. Thanks, Thomas, if you're watching. Okay, so let's take a look. Oh, there you are, Thomas. Hey, you are in the chat. Welcome. I didn't see you there before. Okay, let's take a look at your paragraph. So let's read. Oh, also, if you want to take a screenshot of the changes, I have edited this. So this is, these are the changes that I made in red, so you can review this a little bit later. I won't go through all of the changes here now. So let's take a look at the edited paragraph and talk about it. So let's begin. Let's learn about Eddie Van Halen today, everybody. So welcome, Jonathan Maldondo, hello, and Vike 47, hello, welcome. Okay, so let's go to our summary paragraph about Eddie Van Halen. This was fun. So Eddie Van Halen was one of the most important guitarists in the world. In the late 70s, Van Halen released their first album, and it was a bomb of hard rock. The way Eddie played was something never seen or heard before. he had an amazing guitar tone, which was later called the brown sound, and it was the sound that every guitar player of the 80s wanted to get. There were many artists and bands that tried to replicate his sound. Related to this was the fact that Eddie was an incredible inventor. He was always working to find out how to create the sound he was looking for. An example of this would be when he built a guitar based on a Fender Stratocaster. He adapted different parts of other guitars, such as the electronic equipment, hardware, and so on. This worked, and he developed the concept of a guitar called a super Strat. In terms of his playing style, Eddie Van Halen's talent was reflected in his guitar solos, which were an explosion of power, aggressive playing, and skills, just as rock and roll should be, but always with the music in mind and what it needed. Lastly, his creative mind helped him develop lots of cool tricks that weren't common. He also mastered and popularized techniques like tapping, to mention just one. Eddie Van Halen was important, not just for his music, but also because he influenced many guitar players. He refreshed and completely changed perspectives on the guitar, just like Jimi Hendrix did in the 60s. Whew, all right, epic paragraph. Thanks very much for sending that in, Thomas. That's awesome. So let's talk about this one. We have a very good summary of what, in this case, Thomas likes and finds cool and interesting and important about this musician, right? We have a very, quite a long list because he was a very accomplished musician. We have lots and lots of information, lots and lots of examples that help us to easily understand why Eddie Van Halen was important, right? We have his inventions, we have his musical style, his musical contributions, we have lots and lots of this. I also liked that this had a very natural flow to it, I felt. So the topics flowed naturally together. So here we're talking about amazing guitar sound, and then Thomas, you connected it with this, related to this. So we have these very nice connection words, these very nice transition expressions. He was always working to find out how to create the sound he was looking for. An example of this is, so it was like you set up the idea and then provided an example, which is a great pattern to use, that kind of like two-sentence pattern of setup and providing some detailed information. I thought that was really, really great. And then I also liked that you cued the reader lastly. So this introduces the end of the paragraph very nicely. I thought this was great. I know that this was probably a hard subject to choose like key information from. I could see this as like a good summary on like a Wikipedia page, right? This is how I imagine this being used. Like, okay, this is a summary of Eddie Van Halen and his life. So great job, Thomas. I liked that. In terms of feedback, I think for me, I would probably just see if there's a way I can condense it a little more. If you're giving this to someone who has never heard of Eddie Van Halen, they might be a little overwhelmed. Wow. So we understand your enthusiasm for Eddie Van Halen, but if it's the first time someone is learning about this musician, it might be like a lot of information. So maybe if you want to share this kind of topic with someone else, you can think about how to make it a little shorter, how to focus on maybe the key topics that person might be interested in. So yeah, well done. Thanks very much for sending this in, Thomas. That was super, super great. Okay, so let's continue on to our second one from John Carlo. He's in the chat. Hi there. He wrote about the Philippines, the Philippine archipelago. Let's take a look. So, before I do that, here are the changes that I made to your text, John Carlo. You can take a screenshot of this. And review this later. I won't go through all of the edits in today's live stream, but you can take a look at this. Pause the video after the stream if you want to get all of the edits there. Okay, so let's take a look at John Carlo's submission here. Okay, Vladimir in the chat, welcome. Hi, thanks for joining. Okay, so let's learn about the Philippines. The Philippines consists of thousands of islands, about 7,640 total. The islands are divided into three main groups: Luzon, the Visayas, and Mindanao. I hope I said that right, sorry. The archipelago is known for having beautiful beaches and delicious fruit. It has been colonized by Spaniards, Americans, and Japanese in World War II. These countries influenced the local languages and cultures. The Philippine archipelago has many dialects or local languages, like Filipino Bisaya, Filipino Tagalog, Filipino Chavacano, I hope I said that right, which is the Creole of Spanish, and so on. The archipelago was discovered by the explorer Ferdinand Magellan in 1521 and was named after King Philip II, who was the king of Spain at the time. The first Filipino hero was a warrior named Lapu-Lapu, who was killed in the Battle of Mactan, Cebu. Okay, so we have lots of good and relevant information that helps us to understand the background here. So we get, this is kind of a historical, right? A historical look at the Philippines. We have this information that focuses on the past, right? So we can kind of look at what maybe to expand on here, okay? So let's take a look at what we might do. There might be a little bit of lag in the chat right now. I hope it's all going okay. So let's take a look at how we might improve this one too. So this one, when I read this paragraph, I thought that the information was it all looked good. Like we have lots of key information that helps us to understand what kind of country it is right now. I thought for me, these parts were really, really interesting and really relevant. Like you started to talk about the background of how the Philippines got its culture today, right? So we have the cultural influence and we have like the language influence, right? These are really important points. So I wanted to know more about this. Like I thought you set this up really well. The topic was very, very clear at the beginning, and we could understand kind of the attraction of the country, and we also understood the background of the country. Then we kind of went back to history, right? We didn't continue talking about these interesting points. Instead, we kind of went back to in history to talk about some other points that weren't really related to this topic. So I think my feedback, while all of this information is great, I think I would continue to make this paragraph better, continue talking about this. You did a really great job in this first part, building our knowledge of first the country, the geography, and what's beautiful about it, and then the local cultures and languages, and then we want to know more about that. So what does it look like today, for example? So how does this background influence what we see today? Maybe you could talk more about that instead of going back to a different topic, yeah? So it kind of started really, really nicely, and then we shifted topics. I would suggest continuing the topic so that your reader gets more information that kind of connects to the information you already gave them. So that would be my suggestion for this. So maybe for these last parts, share some information that talks about the Philippine culture today instead of just history. So this would be my suggestion, my recommendation for this paragraph. Thanks very much for submitting it, Giancarlo. I think maybe he's still in the chat. So thanks for doing that. That was cool. Okay, so these are our submissions for the summary style paragraph. Well done, everybody. Thanks to everybody who submitted something. Okay, Thomas says, it was hard to summarize all I wanted to express. Yeah, your enthusiasm for Van Halen definitely came through in your writing. that was definitely there. Okay, let's go to the last part. The last part for today is about essay introductions. So, this one I think is maybe the most challenging one we're going to talk about today, because an essay introduction has a big job. We talked about at the very beginning of today's live stream, we talked about how every paragraph has a job to do, right? It has a function, some kind of purpose, something we need it to do for our reader, right? So for today's workshop, I think this type of paragraph has the biggest job. It has the most responsibility. So let's look at when we use these and why. Let's talk about why. So we begin essays with introduction. What is an essay, by the way? So an essay is a document. It can be a few pages. It can be hundreds of pages. So it's a document that it is a longer idea. So we have one big idea that we need to communicate to other people. We write an essay in order to do that. There are many paragraphs in an essay. We begin essays with introductions. In short essays, the introduction can be just one paragraph long. So that's okay for a very short essay. Maybe in junior high school or in high school, you write essays. One paragraph is generally okay for that. However, in longer texts, an introduction may be many pages long. So if you've read like a really long research article, for example, you might see that the introduction is super long. It's like 3 pages. That's also natural in that situation. So, what is the job of an introduction? The purpose of an introduction is to introduce the key argument of the essay. So the key argument means you need to use the introduction to convince the reader that something is true or not true. What are you trying to persuade the person to believe? So in other words, what is your point? You need to introduce that. What do you think, or what do you believe? What do you want the reader to think after reading your paper? What is the thing you're trying to persuade people of? This is called a thesis statement. A thesis statement. We'll talk about this later. So these are questions that are answered in a good introduction. So this is the job of your introduction. Generally, the introduction also briefly explains some background of your topic and will also explain how you organize the rest of your essay. So that means you share some related but important background information to help your reader understand the topic, and then you explain how you're going to share the details with them. Okay? So maybe you can see already an essay introduction has a big job. So how do we handle this? Let's take a look. Paragraph sample 1. Okay, so I created this sample with kind of a more academic. I wanted this to sound kind of professional so that we could compare it to a less professional sounding sample later. All right, so here we go. In the age of social media, information accessibility is higher than ever. While this allows billions of people around the world to receive news in seconds, it also presents danger. Misleading information, false information, and so-called fake news articles are making it increasingly difficult for many people to make good decisions. Social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter must develop adequate controls to ensure that people are receiving verified information. This paper proposes a new way to regulate information sharing on social media to ensure that viral content does not go unchecked. 3 parts to this proposal will be discussed. 1, detecting viral content. 2, fact-checking of viral content. And 3, limiting spread of viral content that does not pass fact checks. The data included in this document, I was writing this late last night. The data included in this document were obtained from a small-scale test of the viral content fact-checking system. While there is a great deal of room for improvement, this proposal represents the first step toward creating a system that can flag and remove false information as quickly as possible. Woof, that was a big one. Okay, what's going on there? So let's break this paragraph down. Why is this paragraph good? Why does this paragraph represent a pretty good example for this topic? The beginning of an essay, right? This is the beginning part of a longer document about this topic. So, with that in mind, why is this good? This paragraph begins with a topic that most people are familiar with, right? In the age of social media, information accessibility is higher than ever. Okay, we can all pretty much understand that. Social media information accessibility. Then the next sentence talks about an advantage, a good point, and a disadvantage of the situation. This allows billions of people around the world to receive news in seconds, but it also presents danger. Okay, so we have our problem presented here. Okay, so this is a good thing, right? We want to introduce our argument as soon as possible, right? Okay, so other reasons this paragraph is good. The problem is highlighted in sentence 3, and the thesis statement is introduced in the following sentence. So remember, I mentioned thesis statement earlier. That's your statement that introduces your key argument or your key point. So the thesis statement is introduced in the following sentence, right here. Social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter must develop adequate controls to ensure that people are receiving verified information. Okay, so we have this thesis statement here that tells us what the argument is, what the person is trying to talk about. Okay? After the thesis statement, we learn what the key parts of the proposal are and where the data in the paper is coming from. Lastly, we learn what the authors feel is the significance of this information. So that means we have, I'll talk about these last 2 points so we don't just scroll back and forth. Let's talk about these last 2 things. So we talk about the organization of the document right here, yeah? So here is how I'm going to explain this to you. So here are the 3 points we're going to talk about. Then, where did my data come from? Yeah? Okay? And then, finally, here's why we think this is significant. This is why we think this is important and why we think you should think this is important too. So this has a very big job and it covers all of those parts. Notice too that this uses some longer sentence styles, yeah? And we're also not using easy vocabulary words here. This creates a more academic feel. Okay. Perez, is data always plural? Oh, great question. According to some style guides, according to some even specific magazines or specific publishers or whatever, they say always use data as in plural, like data were, for example. I did that here. But you'll also see people using it singular as well. So it kind of depends a little bit on where you're publishing it. Yeah, on where you're publishing your content. So they may have a specific rule about that. It's data plural or singular. But I think I tend to use it in the singular more. Like the data included in this document was obtained. I'm trying to think of why I decided to put it as were here. But I think when I'm writing and when I'm reading, I tend to use it in the singular. The data was obtained. So I know that's kind of a strange answer, right? But that's one of those words that, for whatever reason, we think of. Some people or in some organizations think of it in the singular form. Some people treat it in the plural form too. Okay, let's continue to the next part. Okay, so let's compare this to a paragraph sample that needs a little bit of help. Okay, so same topic again, but let's compare this. Everyone has access to social media nowadays. This is good because lots of people can get news, learn things, and connect with their friends. But there's a big problem. A lot of the information on the internet is false or misleading. This can be really dangerous on a large scale. Right now, there are no controls on social media platforms to control the spread of false information, but we really need some. This essay will explain a proposal for a social media system to control the spread of false information. This essay will cover 3 key steps in the system. 1. Detecting viral content. 2. Fact-checking of viral content. And 3. Limiting spread of viral content that does not pass fact checks. The data in this essay comes from a small research study. There is still a lot of research still to do to fix this problem, but these 3 steps are a great place to start. Okay, so again, is this paragraph wrong? Oh, no. So no, it's not wrong. This paragraph is not wrong, but it needs some improvement. So maybe you might find this one easier to understand, right? So why is that? Let's break that down. Why is this one easier to understand? The feel of this paragraph is quite informal, right? So all of the sentences are correct, yeah? So we have just shorter sentences, but it uses shorter sentences and it uses very basic expressions, right? So here, super simple sentence. Everyone has access to social media nowadays. Okay, very basic fact, okay? The feel of this writing is like a paragraph meant for young people to read, but that's kind of strange, right? So this topic is like a serious research topic, a serious topic about social media and fake news and false information, right? This is a topic that is meant for adults, but the paragraph seems like it's written for a younger person to understand, like maybe a junior high school student to understand. This kind of seems a little strange. The topic is a serious discussion of technology, right? So the topic and the writing style don't seem to match super well, okay? As I said, the vocabulary choices here feel very casual. So these are some good examples of this. This sentence uses right now, and we really need some, and this is good because, and but there's a big problem. So these kinds of vocabulary choices feel very, very casual. We use this right now. How could we upgrade this? We could use at present, for example. That would allow us to upgrade the feel. At present, there are no controls. So at present is a way to elevate the expression right now. This one, but there's a big problem. So this is a kind of basic way to present this idea. In the good example, we shared this with, it presents danger. It presents danger. So this not only makes problem sound more serious, it also kind of makes an emotional connection with the reader too. Okay, so instead of saying there's a problem, we also see it's danger instead in the first example. Okay, next one. The thesis statement here is we really need some, right? So the thesis statement is supposed to communicate your main point to your reader, right? You want to communicate your main point to your reader, tell them your idea. In this example, here is our thesis statement. Right now, there are no controls on social media platforms to control the spread of false information, but we really need some. This is the thesis statement. It's not very strong, right? We really need some. This is the same kind of expression you would use at the supermarket when you're shopping for something you need at your house. Like, oh, do we have any milk? No, we really need some. Like it's the same expression. It feels too casual for a very serious topic, right? So this is not a very strong thesis statement at all, okay? So these are things that we could improve. We need to consider how we could make these points more compelling. Okay? All right. So with that in mind, let's go to our do's and don'ts. These are very short, again, but kind of broad, if that makes sense. Okay? So do share your thesis statement. Don't forget your thesis statement. So sometimes I read things, I read like someone's opinion or someone's idea that they're presenting in an introduction, and I'm not sure what argument they're trying to make. Like they tend to talk a lot about background, but they don't really put their opinion in. Like, what are you trying to say? So think about that. Make sure you share your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is the main argument for your piece, okay? And then remember to mention key background information and opinions to support your thesis statement. So you can't, well, I mean, I suppose you can, but not a good idea to just throw an idea out there. Like, here's my thesis statement with no background information, right? It's kind of strange. So make sure you have some kind of supporting information, some background information, because it helps your reader to understand the context and it helps your argument to make sense inside that context. So you're giving your reader background information they need to know at the beginning to understand the essay they're about to read. Okay, next one. I mentioned this before, but again, don't just write out all your thoughts in a long stream, right? You need to organize your information to help the reader understand what you want to express. So again, remember, you are presenting your information, yes, but your job is to help your reader understand. Finally, if you're writing an essay, generally don't use emoji or other silly characters. It's not going to look good. And don't use like text speak. I've seen articles in the last few years about young people, like in the US, using like text speak in their essays, but please don't do that. So that's a good practice. Phew. Okay, so we're past our sample, so let's take a look at an essay introduction from viewers. Hamza, I have another one from you. You submitted this one about English as an international language. You didn't have this one marked as an essay introduction, but it felt like an essay introduction to me, so I included it here. So let's take a look at Hamza's paragraph. I will show the changes so he can take a look. Oops, sorry. I will show the changes. You can see the changes that I made to this text. Take a screenshot and review that later if you want, Hamza. Let's take a look and let's talk about why this is good and what we could maybe improve about this writing sample. Let's go. Okay, English has become an international language. It presents many opportunities for learners. In Morocco, if one is learning a foreign language, there are limited chances to practice and few resources for many reasons. Our first goal should be to help students learn English. We should make sure that they understand that English is the language of business and marketing. It is an international language, and people in most countries speak some English. Helping students learn should be the priority when they start learning a foreign language. Second, we should help students learn English by creating an English-speaking atmosphere. For instance, we should encourage students to participate in theater and to play English-speaking roles. In addition, the authorities can make contracts with places like the US or the UK to create opportunities for learners. Okay, so let's talk about Hamza's paragraph. So this paragraph had some super great points. I loved in particular, this part right here, the first part. We have this great, very easy to understand introduction sentence that introduces the topic, right? We know immediately what we're talking about and why it's important. And then he goes into more detail. So what is the problem here? So in this case, he's talking about a problem in Morocco, right? He's talking about this problem about limited chances to practice, yeah? And then here he has what we could understand as the thesis statement. Our first goal should be to help students learn English, and here's what we should do. So in this case, he continues to talking about another idea for it and kind of starts listing some other ideas. So this is the part that I would suggest for improvement. Because I know maybe Hamza didn't submit this as an essay introduction, that's okay, but we can talk about how we might use this as an essay introduction. So we have this great beginning part. We have the problem, the context, and the proposed solution. So what I would do if I wanted to make this a good essay introduction, I would make it clear, this thesis statement, our goal should be to help students learn English. And then I would say, in this essay, we're going to talk about, for example, 3 proposals to do that. So here's one proposal, helping students to understand it's the language of business and marketing. Second, creating English-speaking atmospheres. And third, making contracts with other countries and regions for opportunities. So I feel like these topics, these things, are the ways to achieve this goal right here. So I would organize my essay around that. So I would say this essay is going to cover 3 ideas to help learners build their English language skills. Then I would end this paragraph with something of significance, like what does the author hope to achieve? For example, by implementing this or by doing this, we will increase the level of fluency in our country, something like that. So we want to communicate the significance of the proposal here. That's how I would end this sentence. So I would probably write something like this, like I just mentioned. By doing this, we can effectively raise the rate of fluency in our country. So something like that kind of communicates the significance, like I said. So I thought this was a great, I really liked all of the information here. I think I would just organize it a little bit differently. So thanks again to Hamza for sending that in. Super great. And you sent a lot of texts. I only chose 2 of them to include, but thank you for crushing your homework. Okay, with that, that's the end of the essay introduction part. So let's just finish today with some other really short tips, some other super short tips to work on building your paragraph skills. These are very similar to the first workshop skills, actually. Other tips you can use when you're writing a paragraph. First, try reading your paragraph out loud. Does it flow nicely? Does it make sense? If you notice a part that sounds strange to you, you can try to focus on that part and see how you can improve it. So is it a vocabulary thing? Is it just a weird flow? So try reading things out loud to see how they sound to you. Another thing you can do, Try examining the sentence types you've used. So I talked about sentence types in the previous workshop. I have a video about sentence types. I've linked it in the description, so you can check that out. So try looking at the sentence types you use. If you use a lot of simple sentences, for example, your writing will sound choppy, yeah? So try to use some different sentence types to change the rhythm of your writing. This will help it sound a little smoother. Then take a look at the vocabulary words you've used. Could you make more powerful vocabulary choices? Could you choose better adjectives? So remember, you're trying to communicate something to your reader, right? Not just give them a bunch of facts. So think about your vocabulary choices. And finally, have you made your opinion clear to the reader? Like, if you want them to click a link, did you tell them to do that? Like, did you express that somehow? Or if you want them to feel a certain way, did you communicate that somehow through your vocabulary choices? So make sure that you're thinking about your reader as well. So it's not just about getting all the info out, but thinking about the other person, okay? Phew, that's it. So let's go to our recap and then we'll be done with today's live workshop. So our very short recap of today's topics. We talked about 3 types of paragraph. We talked about journal and diary style paragraphs. So what is the overall takeaway? Be casual and express your personality, but be efficient. Make sure you tell people what you want them to do and express what you're about as soon as possible. People on the internet want things fast, right? So efficient, but friendly. Summary paragraphs then. Share the key points with the reader. You don't need to make a list of facts about the product or the work that you're talking about. Help the reader to understand the experience you had with the item you're talking about. And finally, for essay introductions, share key background information and make your argument very clear. Explain how you plan to share your information and tell your reader why your essay is significant or important. All right, so this is our recap of today's topics. Of course, this has been recorded so you can watch it back at any time on my channel, of course. And we'll be done. That is it for today. Phew, that was a lot of information, but I think it went really well. So thank you very much to everyone for joining me live today. There were a bunch of people this time as well. That is super awesome. I'm very happy. Thanks for your questions and your comments in the chat. Yeah, so I will say goodbye for this live workshop. Thanks so very much for liking the video too. We had some new people joining. That was super awesome. So we'll say goodbye for this time, and then I will, of course, post information on the community tab of the writing channel for the next live workshop that I do. I'm already thinking about the next topic for that, so please keep an eye out for that as well. So thanks very much again.